I got to sit down with Maxwell Alexander Drake, better known as Drake, a world-renowned teacher of creative writing and an award-winning author. The first part of my conversation with him is available in the video card on screen now. And here follows the second part, where we discuss world building in mediums other than prose writing, and we delve into the world of self-publishing versus traditional publishing. How much difference, and I know that you also did graphic novels and that kind of thing. So how different does it make it when you're world building and there's also an artist? What is that kind of impact?
Let me actually pre-qualify one thing that I think is
Mm,
important. There's a reason why most writers stick to one medium.
mm,
So I'm a huge Kirkman fan. He wrote The Walking Dead and Invincible. He's a great comic writer and a great script writer when it comes to TV,
mm.
but he's written some novels. And I will just say I'm not a fan. Like, I'm
Yeah,
a huge fan of everything he's done, except for, the novels.
yeah,
Um, and that's one thing that I always like to warn. It's weird that I write in every medium, but the reason is very simple. I understand that every medium is absolutely a different language from every other medium. So
mm,
when you write it, and even like in scripts, writing a TV script, which is about the same length as a comic script, they are still different mediums. So you cannot approach them with the same. The theoretical stuff is the same. The theory of character, the theory of themes, the theory of world building, the theory
mm,
of story structure, those are the same,
mm.
but the implementation are very different. And I think that's where everyone messes up. Like
Yeah,
Kirkman in his novels, he really approached it as a screenwriter.
mm,
And I do believe that, and I've said this often, I've accredited the reason why I have been successful as a script writer is because I started as a prose writer. Because when you're writing a novel, you're responsible for everything,
everything.
like everything.
Mm,
Everything falls on your shoulders. When you're writing a script, you're responsible for this.
yeah,
And so I
yeah,
do believe that it's easier to go from being responsible for this to being responsible for this than it
mm,
is for really learning how to be great at being responsible for this and then attempting to be responsible for this.
mm,
And so I think that's why
mm,
so many script writers fail miserably. But then again, on the other side, one of the things I struggle with, um, especially like on a movie script. So I've got a kids movie, a fantasy kids movie that's
yeah,
I've sold it twice. It didn't get greenlit at the time, so the rights keep coming back to me. And so this last time I was like, I'm going to throw it into a couple contests. I mean, it keeps selling. People love this. And I'm trying to build my resume and reputation within the Hollywood world as opposed to the publishing world
mm,
and gaming world. So I've thrown it in three scripts, three contests. Two of them have started judging. They haven't finished, but in both, that script is in semifinals, so
mm,
top 25 out of a couple thousand submissions, whatever. They haven't finished, so I don't know how far I'm going to go.
mm.
But one of the negative complaints that I get over and over and over again, they're like, oh my God, this is an amazing script, but it can't be 130 pages. You got to get it down to under 120. You'll never sell it if it's 130 pages.
Yeah,
And first of all, I always hate when the industry says stuff like that. Like the publishing industry is famous for several things. Like you can never have an adverb in a speech tag, and yet every book they publish has adverbs and speech tags.
yeah,
You can never start a book off with a dream sequence, yet dozens and dozens of books start off with, like, I hate it when and so like for me, when they're like, you can't have a kids movie that's 130 pages, and I'm like, Monsters Inc. is 132 pages. Like, why? Like, don't tell me that there's this
yeah,
hard rule when you break it. Like, that always makes me angry. But
yeah,
they are correct. I do need to cut it down. So actually, I'm in the process of rewriting it. That's what I was working on this morning.
yeah.
Is cutting and doing all that. And one of the things is where I've cut, because I'm a very tight writer. So I
Mm,
was talking to this one movie producer where he was like, you really need to cut this down. And I said, okay, where? And he goes, yeah, I've read the script 5 times. And the last 3 times I read it was specifically looking for redundancy, because every writer has redundancy. You have a scene that does X, but you did X in
mm,
this other scene. And so you could really cut that. And he's like, nothing. I got nothing. you can't cut a single scene out of this script or the entire movie is broken. And I'm like, yeah, I'm a pretty tight writer. But what I did realize as I was going through it is I am also a prose writer. And so the backstory, the world building of that fantasy, which is robust, and it's the number one thing that everybody's blown away on. They're like, I have never read a script that has this much amazing world building in it. It's this whole new, brand new thing that has never existed before, and you just get sucked into it through this mostly dialogue. But I started looking at the world building and looking at, and again, world building drives the story. And so there's elements that drive the story to the end that are a little complicated because of what I wanted to accomplish. But I was like, can I accomplish the same thing with less complexity? Because when you cut out complexity, you don't have to explain it. And so I started looking at, can the history of this world be less complex and still get me to the thematic ending that I'm looking for? And the answer was yes. And so I feel like I'm going to end up cutting about 10 to 12 pages just in simplifying the history of the world, simplifying, because the world revolves around magic, and the magic, how magic is in the time of the story and how it was in the past is what gets us to the climactic, moment at the end of the movie. And so I had all of that is complex because I'm a prose writer. So I've got unlimited time, I've got 20 novels if I want. But in a movie script, you don't. And so it forced me to, even though I got it down to 130 pages as is, it forced me to go, okay, can I cut out XXX and still get to the end of the story? And the answer was yes. And so now I'm rewriting and moving a few things around, and I've simplified it. And I just in simplifying the world building, how magic was created, how it interacts with the world today, and how they're going to fix it to solve the conflict of the story. Just by simplifying that, I'm probably going to cut out 10 pages of this script, and all the scenes are going to be the same basically. I have to rewrite and adjust because of that, but really the story is intact as it was written in the 130 page version. It's just going to be tighter, less complex, easier to explain to the audience. And again, it's a kids movie, so my target audience is 8 to 10. So the terminology, the language, the complexity should, and I think the 130 page version matched that, met that criteria, but now it's even more simplistic. So these are just things I think about when it comes to world building. And so when you get into, now to answer your question, I just kind of laid the foundation. So now you get into, back in 2015, since I grew up playing Dungeons and Dragons and loving that, I love the fact that my name is now on a Larry Elmore project, who did half the art for Dungeons and Dragons. So me and Elmore became really good friends because he also was working for Sony when I worked for Sony. And so we started talking, and we ended up doing that project together, which was, again, a kid growing up playing D&D, looking at all of Elmore's art for my whole life, and then, getting into the industry and actually doing work with him was amazing for me. But when you are working with that, so I just hired, and I haven't talked about it, but I do want to talk about the actual cartoon that I'm making. So this I can't make. This I need millions of dollars. And if there's any YouTube out there that wants executive producer credits, I've got a project that just needs $14 million. And so if you drop that on me, boom, executive producer, baby, you get points on the back end. If it makes any money, you get profit. If you want that executive producer credit, just contact me, because I do need $14 million to make the show.
Contact details in the description.
For those of you out there that's got a spare 14 million lying around. But I am working on a cartoon that is in this world that I can produce on my limited resources and my limited budget. And I do have an animation studio with a few, mostly subcontracted, but still. And so just this week, I hired a artist, modeler, rigger for that project. And so, when you're dealing with other people, and it was a crew of 150 of us working on EverQuest Next. And so you've got all these other artists and all these other ideas and all these other things. a lot depends on you and your authority within that project. So like when I was working with Elmore, it's Larry Elmore.
Yeah.
My authority on that project was about there. Like if Larry Elmore says, I'm going to do this, I'm going to be like, yes, sir, you're going to do that. Luckily, he trusts me on the writing side. And so, he is a fan of my writing. It's kind of the reason why we were able to work together. But I've done some graphic novel, like Dead Ned is a comic book of mine that never got released because the artist ended up getting cancer, and he's still fighting that. Wonderful artist named Cyril Vanderhagen. Look him up. He's Magic Gathering artist. I mean, he hasn't done work in about 7 years because of him fighting these health issues. But he's actually hopefully going to start getting back into things. He's had some great, finally, some progress. Wonderful artist, amazing human being too. But Dead Ned is my project. It's I'm the art director, the writer, the director. Same thing with like so the cartoon that I'm actually working on right now, which hopefully will drop on YouTube first part of next year. And I don't know how many episodes total will drop initially, but season 1 is 10 12-minute episodes. But it's called Guards. And it is a part of the Fiend Folly world. So, it's the same thing, way cleaner. Because again, like I was talking about, Fiend Folly being written for a Hulu or a Netflix, where I don't have the limitations of censorship. I'm going to be dropping Guards on YouTube. So it doesn't have sex jokes. It doesn't have, foul language or anything like that, because of the limitation of the medium that I'm planning on, it going to. But, with Guards, I am what's called the showrunner, and that's the term in TV for whoever's the boss of the project, which means everything has to come through me. Everything has to be approved by me. Everything has to be signed off by me. Nothing moves forward without the showrunner's approval. But it also means that everything lands on my shoulders. Every bad thing that happens, every missed deadline, every budget, that we screwed up because we spent money on this thinking that it was going to work and it didn't, and now we just wasted a couple $1,000s. All that also comes back to me. You're the ultimate thing. But so it really depends on that. That's the first thing. The first thing is how much authority do you have within the project? But to me, it goes a little deeper than that, because I thrive in an environment where everyone is allowed to be, the artist. Like, that's one of the weird things. I'm friends with a ton of Magic the Gathering artists because of the conventions that I do. I've just made friends with them. We end up sharing booth spaces because they love to do a booth. Like, if they do a booth with another artist, then they're competing against that artist. If they do a booth with a crazy dude, then they're really not competing with me, because if you're not going to buy art but you're going to buy writing, then you're going to buy writing or whatever. So it's not like they're competing against that artist. So I've ended up making really good friends with tons and tons and tons of Magic artists over the years. And one of the weirdest things about listening to them is how little freedom they have within their own work. I mean, Wizard of the Coast is like, this is what you're going to draw, and this is how you're going to draw it. And they're really just kind of like the pen, and they draw the piece of art and they send it back to the art director, and the art director goes, okay, love this, hate this, change that, move this is gone, replace it with this. And then they're like, and they just do exactly what they're told. And again, that comes down to what authority do you have? And WotC, Wizard of the Coast, has all the authority. And so they, manhandle it. And you can take that route. I find that that's bad to the project. Sure, if you have an ego and you want it done your way, then you're not going to listen to anybody. But more than likely, the project is not going to be as good as it is. I mean, one of the things I love about the Realm is, even though I kind of spearheaded the project and came up with the initial ideas, and then brought Rob on, which is my second, he was my second at Sony too. And then we worked for it for a few months, and then we brought on Brian and Alan. One of the things that I've told them up front is, no idea goes forward unless all 4 of us agree that it's the right idea. Period. And it does mean way more discussion than it normally would have taken. Because, you know, there's been times where three of us are like, oh, this is a great idea. And a fourth is just like, no, it's not. And here's why. And so, and it's like, okay, well, let's keep going then. Let's keep digging at this. Let's keep poking this, because the reality is 100% of the time, 100% of the time, when we finally agree on something, it is better than anything else that we've agreed on in the past. So, you know, when I bring on a new artist, and even like when I had this meeting with this 3D modeler, he's going to be making a couple puppets. He's going to be making the 2 guard puppets that are needed for this show. I've already drawn, you know, and I can share my screen or whatever, and we can look at some stuff, or you can just go to fiendfolly.com and look at some of my art. So I've already drawn these 2 guards, right? I already have the layout, what they wear, how they look, with, you know, the body structure and everything like that. So and it's called the concept art. And so I've sent that to the modeler, and I'm like, I want it to look close to this. This is the art style. So, you know, this is the art style that you're coming into a world that has already assets created. So therefore, it has to look like it's from this world. You know, you can't have Archer showing up in Simpsons, because it's a very different art style. Although you can't have Simpsons showing up in Family Guy, because they're, you know, even though they're different, they're still kind of similar. But this, you know, you do want to keep that style throughout, that stylistic choices throughout. But I told him it doesn't have to be exact. Like, I do what you've got to do, you know, make artistic choices. And if I don't like it, if I absolutely hate it, I will tell you. But, you know, I try to give them that freedom, because the reality is, when you're collaborating with another artist, they're going to think about things different. They're going to look at, I mean, like, one of the things in talking to one of my animators, this is not, I mean, one of the things about animation is that you animate for the script. So I'm writing the scripts, and that's really where you have the most kind of leeway. So the movie writing 101, when you're writing a movie, a live action thing, it works like a pyramid, and the script is at the bottom as far as kind of changeability, and have almost complete freedom in that. But basically, the further you move into the project, the more changes can get made. The actors bring stuff, directors bring stuff, costuming, lighting, staging, all these things, and all of that can change. In animation, it's the exact opposite. Where you have the most flexibility is in the script writing. Every step you take forward, you have less and less and less abilities to change anything. So, you know, in the script, this isn't it. But one of my animators, so one of the guards is kind of heavy set, but he's, you know, used to be in great shape. So he's still got the thick arms and all of that. And one of my animators was just through the ideas like, hey, what about him being able to, you know, because some chunky guys, you know, that are big and buff, but they get that belly, they can still pull that belly in and puff out the chest and kind of make them look a heck of a lot better than just when they're, you know, they've let it kind of go. And he goes, what about that? And I was like, oh, I mean, I have no need for it, but sure. And so when I was talking to the modeler, I'm like, I'm going through because you have to go through the specifications of what the puppet will need to have abilities to animate. And so since the animator was like, I would like to have that just in case, now I can go to that modeler and be like, you know, in the rigger. So you model, and sometimes it's different. In this instance, it's gonna be one person doing it, but he's modeling. So he'll create the 3D puppet. And then he'll rig it, which is where you add the bones and add all the control points so that the animator can grab those and move, you know, everything around. But if there isn't a rig for it, if the rig doesn't have the ability to pull in his fatness around his, you know, belly and move it up to his chest, then you can't animate it. It's impossible. It has to be, you know, again, the further you go into the process, the less change you can make. So, you know, I wouldn't even come up with that idea myself. It's not in the scripts, but now the cool thing is because the animator has thrown that at me, and the rigger's like, yeah, I can get that done. That's not a problem. Now I can go, ooh, what if I do need, you know, now I might be able to write something in there where he's like, ooh, you know, I got to look bigger and badder than what I am when I'm just letting it all go. And so without that collaboration, without, you know, if I was just this tyrant, it's like, no, we will do it my way. I wrote the script, and, you know, we need this and we don't need that, and you'll do it my way. I feel like you cut out a lot of creativity and a lot of abilities for storytelling. So just, again, that's my warning to that. When you're working with those other professionals, you still, and I'm assuming that we might be getting into the realm of, oh, I'm going to self-publish a book and now I have to buy a cover artist to do the cover art. If you're self-publishing, then you are the art director.
So I do feel that I should interject here, because I actually recently done that, bought my cover art for my upcoming book, and I am self-publishing, mostly because I don't fully see the point of the publishing industry.
Money.
Yeah, I know, I get it, but I mean, I don't see why I should share it if I can build my own, platform via YouTube.
If you're right, if you can build your platform and you have this thing going, and that's awesome. But just to interject before we go down that path, because more people quit self-publishing than make money. So the reality is that the average self-publisher makes $268 a year.
Yeah, and that's
work a year.
Yeah. Huh? That's not enough to do anything with, but
right. Well, I just wanted to say this because it is a myth that people are like, why should I only get 10% of this when I can get 70% of it, which is what you'll get as a self-publisher. And the difference is most self-publishers are only selling, even if you're doing really well, you might sell 5,000 copies. So sure, you get 70% of 5,000 copies. Let's say you're selling it for $5. But if a publisher is going to do it, I only get 10%, but they're going to sell 300,000 copies or 400,000 copies. And so, I only get $1 a piece instead of $3 a piece, but I get $1 a piece of way more copies sold.
I feel you, and I hear where you're coming from, right? And that was why my initial research, I was like, okay, I'll go into the traditional publishing and so on. Then I started doing a lot of research on traditional publishing. And unless you get signed by one of the New York Big Five, it's pretty much the same as self-publishing. Like
small press.
You're basically
small press. I'm not a fan of small press. For the most part, are just self-publishing your book for you and they're taking the 50% cut. And really, it doesn't work out that way. If they're an actual publisher, that's the other thing is, a lot of people are like, they're getting 90% and I'm getting 10%. The reality is, the absolute truth of the matter is, if you go traditional with an actual traditional publisher, and again, I don't include small press on that because they literally just do what you do as a self-publisher. So yes, small press, I never recommend. A matter of fact, last night I had a friend who's an author call me up, a self-published author, and he was like, hey, I'm looking at the small press. And I'm like, why?
No.
Why?
No.
So 100% right on that. 100% right.
Yeah. But even the Big Five, even like the New York guys, I mean, basically they'll market your book, and there are advantages to it, right? Absolutely.
Well, and here's the myth that I want to break real quick.
But
they only make 10%.
Yeah. No, I know they don't. I know.
Okay.
No, I know that part. Like, because I've paid for a cover art and all the rest. And I know that there's a lot of costs involved. And I know that they, like, for what they do, they also have costs to cover. I get all of that. I just think that there's a lot of people who think that if you get traditionally published, the book will automatically be a success.
And that's not true.
No, because the book has to be marketed. You have to find your circle, right? You got to find that circle of people who like your book, who like the way you write, the way you world build, your genre. And so when I did that piece of research and I realized that, I was like, okay, but I'm going to have to do this whether I'm doing traditional, even if HarperCollins picked me up as an author, I'd still need to do it.
It depends. So now we're going to get into the dirty little secrets of the publishing industry that nobody gets privy information to until it's too late and you're in the publishing industry.
Okay.
So it depends on, there's a lot of things about the publishing industry that irk me and that I think are kind of dumb business practices. One of the things that the big boys like to do is they do what's called shotgunning, where they'll take 50 authors, they'll give them the minimum royalty, which is $2,000 for a big publisher to pick you up. They have to pay you $2,000. That's the minimum. or it might be 2,500 now or whatever, but it was $2,000 not too long ago. When a publisher drops $2,000 on an author, it's nothing. It's literally, I gave you $10.
Yeah.
You know, I'm walking down the street, you're a homeless person, and I feel bad for you. And I reach in my pocket and I give you, or we can even go $1 because I am a starving writer. So $1, I mean, because $10 to me is actually still worth something, but $1, maybe not.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm a little bit successful enough to say I can give $1 away without feeling it.
Yeah.
But that's really what it is. So unfortunately, at that point, they give you no marketing. They literally will shotgun 50 authors out.
Yeah.
And they'll do the minimum print run, which is usually about 5,000 copies.
Yep.
They're in with the bookstore, so all 5,000 copies will go onto the shelf.
Yep.
One of those will do what's called a sell-through. A sell-through is, it used to be 70%, now sell-through is 80%. They want to see 80% of the copies printed sold on a print run. So one will sell 80% of those $5,000. And that one, they will go, ooh, don't know how it succeeded, but let's go ahead and order some more, and let's talk to this author about a second book. Yeah. The other 49 will end up losing them money because they won't do the sell-through. They won't make their money back on the, they didn't spend any money on marketing, but they did spend a little bit on cover. They spent on shipping. They printed the books. They got it to the bookstores. But they lose money.
Yeah.
But the one book that does the sell-through covers the cost of all 50 of the books. So they technically didn't lose any money, but those 49 authors that didn't sell through no fault of their own, get dropped. And the problem is at that point, you're burnt as an author. Because let's say Tor publishes you that way, and then you write another book and you go to Random House and they're like, nope, but you've already failed. You're burnt. Yeah. Why would I give you a chance?
Yeah.
And so now the ball's against you because of that. So it really comes down to that initial advance on royalty. You know, you get up into the much higher 5 figures, into the 6 figures, 7 figures if you're a Brandon Sanderson.
Yeah.
Now they take you serious. Now, and it's not that they take you serious, they take the money they gave you serious. So if you get a $150,000 advance, which is why agents push so hard for that, they know that at 75,000, 100,000, 125,000, that publisher is now not just going to print up 5,000 copies. Yeah. They're going to print up 30,000 or 50,000 copies. And then that increases their cost, and they're going to now market. They're going to market to make sure that they have the best chance of getting their advance back, their initial print run back, and all of that cover cost. They're going to spend a little bit more on a cover art, make it look a little better. They're going to spend more money on reviews and advanced reader copies, and that takes time and money and effort. They're going to send it out to professional reviewers, magazines, and trade magazines and newspapers. So it really, that's a dirty little secret, because so many authors are like, I got signed by Tor, I'm so excited. And then they have $2,000 to their name, and that's it. And they're dropped and they're burnt and they're done. Yeah. Their career's effectively over for no fault of their own. They literally didn't have a chance. And so you're right, but you're also wrong. Like, you just have to understand. And it's one of the reasons why, so the 2 series that I'm working on, I'm holding one, and I've talked to Tor about it, but I'm holding it because I don't feel that they're going to give me the advance that I would like. And again, the crazy thing is they could give me a $2,000 advance if they in contract said they were going to spend X on marketing. Like, if they drop the big marketing budget behind me, they could actually give me less money up front. I don't care, because it'll make the sales if people find out about it. The Realm, we are self-publishing, and we're doing it for 2 reasons. One, if you can drop a book every 3 months, you can build a very quick platform off of that. But 2, no publisher that I've talked to will do it that way. So when I'm talking to these bigger publishers and I'm like, look, I've got this series, but you've got to guarantee me you're going to publish 1 book every 3 months. They go, oh, no, we don't do that. That's not how we operate. We'll do 1 book a year. And I'm like, I'll be dead by the time the 20th one gets published then. I don't got 20 years left. I don't want that. So, one of the reasons for us doing it is We know, because it's been proven, there's actually a organization called 20 Books to 50K that is proven if you drop a book every 3 months, you can, find that audience and find that platform, because Amazon loves series that come out that fast. So Amazon pushes books to their readers when it's coming out that fast, because they know that that's what readers want. They know readers, like, you're so used to a book every 2 years. Now it's trying to get closer to that one every year. If you can start getting a book every 3 months in the same series, like, that makes fans go nuts.
Yeah.
And so Amazon knows this, they push it, they help you build that platform. And so it's the reason why, there's a lot of business reasons why we're doing the realm the way we're doing it, as well as this, process. The problem is that most of the people that are writing books and dropping one every 3 months, to me, are not very good. And again, I'm saying
Yeah.
You can also point to the fact they get a lot of 1 and 2 star reviews, but I'm not even going to point to that, because you just can't have a quality story if you're coming up with the plot, coming up with the world, plotting it out, writing it, editing it, typesetting it, putting a cover on it every 3 months.
Yeah.
If you're doing that, there's just no way that you can match the quality that I match in a novel that I spend a year on.
Yeah.
So I knew I couldn't do that and keep the quality level. But since I have 3 little mini Drakes that were all trained by me and all write in the same mindset as me, getting us together and all writing on the same story simultaneously, because we're not writing individual novels.
Yeah.
The way I've divided the story out is every one of us are writing every single novel. And so, like, it's just been fantastic. And because we're all very similar and because we're the same, there's still differences in our author voices, which is fine, because each one of us are actually writing different main characters. So, when you're in my main character, you'll be in my voice. And when you're in, Rob's main character, you'll be in Rob's voice. So the difference in voices is actually a good thing, because it helps you separate these characters and their stories as they're going through this one world. But it is one novel, one 20-part novel, one 20-part story, one, just with multiple characters, like most epic fantasy is. So, there are advantages to self-publishing.
If you've enjoyed my conversation with Drake, you'll enjoy his creative writing course. He is a world-renowned teacher, and for listeners of this program, he is offering 50% off his 40-lesson package. The course covers everything you need to know to build a wonderful foundation to a successful writing career. To take advantage of this offer, go to drakeu.com/half off and enter the code BRUTAL50 at checkout. The code and the URL are on the whiteboard now and is in the description of the video. The last part of our conversation will come out next week, so make sure that you're subscribed for that.